Hey folks, today we're going to do something we don't do a whole lot on this channel. About every 6 months I try to do an update of some sort. Sometimes it's a series of updates, and sometimes it's every tank. That's what we're doing today. It's an all aquarium update that's all coming up right after this. Hey YouTube, this is pecktec, and like I said earlier, I don't do this a whole lot. It's an all aquarium update. I try to do it every 6 months or so, or do an update series in general. I think last year I kind of focused mainly on individual tanks or groups of tanks, but I think there's a lot of benefit to kind of just showing everything all at once. So a lot of people, when they come to my videos, they'll see a particular setup or something that they're interested in, and then they just want to know immediately what happened with that. I've got a playlist for updates only, and what it does is every time I do an update of any sort, whether it be an individual tank or all the tanks like this one, I put them in that list, and you can look at them in order and kind of go and see the whole evolution of an aquarium, including videos that you probably missed along the way. I tried with this channel in particular to make it a very playlist-oriented channel. I try to do things, I try to organize things in my playlist to make it really easy if you want to binge a particular build, or if you want to know all the information about any particular project. Usually there's a playlist associated with it. The same is true with kind of like product-oriented playlists, like the Fluval Flex videos or the Fluval Edge videos, Fluval Spec videos. Those are all grouped together in playlists as well. I've been on the platform for maybe 12 or 13 years, so a lot of the times some of these setups are long gone, and some of them just continue to go, but you'll be able to see the continuing evolution of these things. Just kind of check the date of the video that you watched, and then go in the playlist updates and find the date where it starts, and yeah, you can go from there. All right, because I'm showing you everything and I wanted to be thorough, this is a fairly long video. I've included timestamps to kind of help you guys out. If there's a particular tank you're more interested in than another, or if you've watched the whole thing and want to go back and like, oh, what did he say about this, that, or the other, you can go right to it. I'll probably have to narrate a fair portion of this, so I'm going to go ahead and go into it now. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, we're going to start today with the Scaping with Scraps challenge that I did. It was a Rachel O'Leary's challenge that she posted last year. I built this out of just basically stuff I had sitting around, and it's changed a lot. Of course, the waterfall was taken out very shortly after I put it in, and it's been rescaped a little bit, and it's grown in quite a lot. The plants on the left and the right are doing great. I still have algae though. I still have a lot of algae on the rocks and other things. I've got these gobies. I guess you could call this a goby tank because there's about 3 or 4 different species. That big guy you just saw and that little guy, or those, there they are kind of together, are supposedly the same species, but it's really hard to tell because the big one looks so much different than the little guy. Both of them do behave very similarly though, and that they like to bury themselves in the sand, and they're pretty hilarious. I've also got a coolie loach. I've got several of these coolie loaches. This is the only one that's survived. There's another one of the gobies. This is the smaller one. I've got another, this one and a bigger version, which are very, very similar. So there's no doubt that these two are related. The big guys, they act virtually the same way, and that they can really change their colors. It's really interesting. Behind a dark background, they get really dark. And then a light, they turn really light, almost the same color as the sand as you saw in the smaller one. But really good eaters. These two really seem to eat just about anything. Then I've got this, it was sold to me as a rainbow goby. They seem really small for that, but they're really neat. Kind of like an auto that eats a lot of, that can eat a lot of meat products. Really interesting fish also. So over here on the other side of the room, I'd like to direct your attention to a tank that's it's been around for quite a little while, and it's one I call the Face Tank. The Face Tank is an old style Fluval Flora. This was made as part of a contest. I reinstalled the light in the back of it. I love to make the eyes glow and stuff. And the main build for this was called Let's Face It. It has evolved quite a bit since then. It's only got a couple of fish in it, and that's sort of a running theme through a lot of my tanks. It's got this one's got some spotted blue-eyed rainbows and some cherry red shrimp. And I was hoping to kind of do a breeding project with them. I haven't focused on that a great deal though, so maybe that'll come at a different time. This one really needs to kind of be redone, so I might pull those fish out, put them in a big tank, and do kind of a rescape on this, and just kind of pretty it up just a little bit, because it's sort of they're just sort of plants everywhere. I pulled a bunch of plants out of it for a couple of other builds, so I really need to go ahead and get some more stuff going in there. Next, we've got the Steampunk Tank, and this is another tank that this was built for a contest at the Big Fish Deal. I won about 3 awards from it, and I was really, really proud of that. It is still going. This tank has not changed much at all. Inside, I've got some black coolie loaches that really love it in there. I've just thrown some food in there so they'll go nuts. And it's got one endler that I wasn't sure what to do with, so I just kind of popped him in there to see if he would help knock food down off the surface when I throw floating food in there. Anyway, it's really neat. It's got this it's got sort of a bog filter built onto the top of it, and those have wabikusa balls with plants that grow, and that is the only filter really for this tank. The water flows up into that filter, then back into the tank. It's about a 5-gallon aquarium inside of there, and it doesn't get water changes. I've just kind of let this one go for a long time. I'll periodically test the water, of course, and just make sure it's still on track, but I've never seen any issues from it. It's easily my most balanced aquarium, especially for having I think I've got 4 fairly good size coolie loaches in there in just a 5-gallon tank, and another small little fish. The plants I periodically trim. I trim them back all the time. There's my little tools I put on the side. They're actually more for aesthetics than anything else. I've even got plants inside. This is like some Anubis Nana Petite, which is doing really, really well. Around Christmas, I put a new light in there that's super bright, and I've been real happy with that. All right, so across the room, over here on the other side, I've got some other tanks that are pretty interesting. Okay, and over here on the other side of the room, we've got the Hydra 25-gallon tank. Now, this is a tank that I built last summer, and it's another tank that at first glance it looks empty, but trust me, there are tons and tons of fish and shrimp in this thing. Very interesting tank. It's mostly filled with Anubias. Anubias, for some reason, grows really, really well for me, so I have a lot of it. This is sort of a mix of Anubias and Java Fern and some other things. I've got some Buse towards the bottom that we'll look at here in a little bit. I tried to make it so that the hardscape was sort of emerging out of this. I was actually inspired by an aquascape from another person that I follow on Instagram called The Nature Creator. He's somebody that first came to my attention while I was doing that Show Me What You Got videos. And there's the Buse. All 3 of my little Buse plants have flowers coming out of them right now, which is neat and fun. Anyway, so I wanted this aquascape to really show the wood, like just kind of emerging out of the thick knots of plants and stuff. Not every plant I've put in here has been super successful. I had some swords in there that I thought would just grow like crazy, but they never really did. I've got some really, really huge orange shrimp. Brought some orange shrimp from downstairs up here and put them in, and they've done really well. I never see babies or others. And of course, there's a Hillstream Loach. I really love that thing. But also in here, I've got exclamation point rasboras. I've got rosy loaches. And I've got a lot of baby endlers right now. The glass top that I made for this has made this a really, really easy tank to keep. and because I don't have to deal with evaporation, which is something usually you have a problem with in a rimless tank like that. But it kind of keeps that rimless look still. And as we move over to the next door neighbor here, we see my 20-gallon long. This tank has been a lot of tanks, including the Into the Woods tank, and it was the one I demoed for the corner filter. It's doing really, really well. The most latest iteration of this tank I did in a video called Anoxic Experiments. I put a plenum down below. I used some cat litter as one of the layers in here to try and mimic some of the stuff that you've seen online for anoxic filtration. I can't say scientifically that it's done better. I haven't been great about doing water tests and really trying it out. The few times I have checked though, the water parameters are very, very good for this one. I've been real happy with it overall. A little bit of algae now and then, but really not a big deal. Not a lot of algae. Of course, I put a Siamese algae eater in there too, so he's going to help with that a lot. But the colors of the fish seem really good. The overall health of everything in the tank seems to be really good. The plants are growing great. Of course, this one does have CO2 in it, and I do put a small amount of fertilizer in there each week. But I'm really happy with the way that this particular tank's going. It's a great little aquarium. There was some concern about the way that I plumbed the filter, the under gravel filter I plumbed it into the corner here, and a lot of people were worried that there wouldn't be enough flow, but I think it's done really well. The canister filter also, I had to take the output and put a sponge on it so it wouldn't blow my grommies around too much. But that's about all that I've changed from the setup. Okay, the next tank we're going to see is one of my older tanks that I've done. It's the 57-gallon column, and this was one of the first. This might not have been the first planted tank that I set up on YouTube, but it's definitely one of the oldest that are still going now. As you can see, it's got some algae issues. It's got the dreaded hair algae in this one. It's also my highest population. As I broke down other tanks with small fish, most of them got migrated into this tank. And then, of course, I threw a bunch of these endlers that I've been trying to breed. I threw some of them in there, and then they've had babies a couple of times over, and so it's getting really, really crowded in here. And I'm going to have to eventually start transferring the fish out and into some other stuff. The fish that are in there they're a big mix of a lot of different tetras, and there's some pandagaras. There's of course the endlers. There's some pencil fish. There's a lot of big variety of different fish in here, and I don't know. I'll probably have to start migrating them downstairs into maybe the new tank that I set up, the 43-gallon or something like that, because I haven't really gotten a lot of fish for that one yet. This one's one I keep threatening to breaking down. I keep threatening to break this one down because it's just so old. The plants are doing okay. Like, I've still got pretty decent plant growth in this one, but unfortunately, I get a lot of algae too, and I don't think the plants are growing quite as well as they used to. So it might be time to kind of go in and revisit maybe taking this one down. And this would be a good year probably to take this one down and then replace it, just to have another project, and just try something else. I can move all these guys to other tanks and stuff, and I got plenty of very nearly empty tanks around to move these guys around to. And take this down, just start with something else and just kind of get something else going. I've had some success with a lot of the plants in here, but overall I have kind of overrun with algae in here. I spent a lot of time in here trying to clean it out, and I'm just getting tired of it. I'd really like to just try something new. It's been around long enough. Okay, now we're getting into another tank that's been around for quite a while, and this is my Spec 5-gallon. I think it was originally scaped in a video called Mini Gardens, Of course, those little mini gardens are long gone, but you can still see a lot of the Scape the way it was before. I've got some Monte Carlo there. It's not growing super thick or anything. I got the same Anubias that's been in there before. That Anubias has been trimmed off and brought to other tanks over and over and over again. The only thing that's in this right now is some cherry red shrimp and that neurite snail that you see there, kind of huddled into the Anubias. This one is, if I'm going to keep it around, I'd really like to go ahead and do a rescape for it. I'd like to. It looks pretty right now, but I'd love to take that Anubias out and really like separate it, because it's getting kind of bundled up and clumped up. It'll just turn into this huge clump after a while. I'd like to declump that and really spread it around to the rest of the tank, and just kind of try something new. See if I can kind of rejuvenate this tank a little bit. Of course, I got some pothos sticking out the top of it. I guess that's been helpful. It doesn't really grow very much. It just kind of stays that same length. So I don't know if it's doing a whole lot. But it's been a fun tank. This one too is real tempting just to take down. Maybe take that giant Anubis and put it in a new project somewhere else, or send it to a friend or something like that. And I don't. That's kind of the reason why there's no fish, currently really residing in there. Hopefully though, I am curious to see what this thing looks like. So I might bring up some small pieces of driftwood and revisit this thing, separate out that Anubias and put it throughout the whole tank instead of just kind of being on one side. I think the idea was just to hide that plastic wall that's on one side of this thing. Something really funny about this tank is in the video, I can't remember which of the videos, maybe it's an update video or setup video, people keep commenting that they're watching, and then they'll list the current date. There's been a whole lot of that. Like for years and years, people have been doing that, and I think it's hilarious. So thank you guys for the smiles. All right, so every family has that weird uncle that lives in a tree. Well, maybe not every family, but in my tanks, this is the weirdo relative. So this tank, I've never been able to really get to grow in the way I want it to. Everything kind of quickly covered in with algae and really became a mess. That's kind of why I've got frog bit to such a degree on here. Now, one thing it does do well though is it's been a great shrimp tank. My orange shrimp seem to be doing really well in there. I've got babies all over the place, and although these little shrimp, they don't grow to as large a size in these small tanks as they do in the bigger tanks, it's still kind of interesting, like just how many, like there's babies in here every single time I look. And the algae is gradually getting better. I tried a bunch of stuff, from peroxide mixtures to a total blackout. I did a 1 week total blackout on here, and it did like just about almost nothing for it. Tried a bunch of different techniques, and nothing's really worked as far as like kind of getting that hair algae that's might be hard to see on here, but it's completely covered a bunch of plants. I'd really like to somehow get back. I've thrown a mono shrimp in there, and they maybe have made a dent in it a little bit, but for the most part, it's just continued to grow the same way, no matter what I do. What I'm putting just a tiny amounts of food in there right now, and I'm letting the orange shrimp just kind of grow and take over inside of there for now. This one might go down at some point, but for right now, it's a decent hatchery. As we move downstairs, I'd like to show you the Spec 16. This tank isn't empty, but the stuff that does live in there is mostly hiding. I've got a one fish that you'll see there towards the top. We'll get a close-up of him in a second. That's a half beak, and he's kind of the star of this tank. He's the one I kind of come in and look at the most. I love the overall look of this aquarium. I've also got some giant Amano shrimp. This Amano shrimp here is probably 10 or 11 years old at this point. It's a very old Amano shrimp, and it is absolutely huge. It's as big as my pinky, and I think there's two of them about that size in there. It's also got tons of cherry shrimp. It's got a bunch of celestial pearl danios, or galaxy rasboras, whatever you want to call them. They're kind of hiding out in the back. I've got a bunch of I've got a couple of rosy loaches that are also in there. I think the galaxy rasboras, their population has finally dwindled down to the point where they kind of hide a lot, and I really need to get in there and maybe repopulate them, kind of bring some more in. I kept hoping they would breed, and I would pull moss off of there and put it in other little containers and stuff and try to see if I could get some babies out of them, but I haven't been able to do that. I've also got a neurite snail that lives in there, and it's pretty neat. This tank is it's kind of overgrown most of the time. It's one of those that just tends to grow and grow and grow, do really well. I have trimmed it out quite a bit, as best I can, to kind of get the to get it looking like a true aquascape, and I think it looks neat right now. It's kind of jungly, but you can see into it. The hardscape's absolutely lost on it, but it's got some structure to it, and I really enjoyed this tank a lot. It's one of the few that are kind of at eye level, so I end up looking in there a lot. I need to find some more fish to put in there though, and really liven it up. The next thing here is a little project I did last summer, the tiny indoor waterfall or pond. And it's been doing okay. A lot of the plants didn't make it. A lot of the weird mosses and plants that I put in there didn't make it. It's kind of a first try for me with a lot of things. Aside from this tree has grown like gangbusters, and I'm not really sure how to trim it. So I have been putting that off a bit. It looks really nice next to its neighbor here, which will be the next tank we talk about, the 15-gallon Fluval Flora. And it's got some interesting creatures in here. It's where I started breeding my orange shrimp, which are, like cherry red shrimp, but the color orange instead of red. It's also got these fish that you'll mainly see at the top, and those are red blue-eyed rainbows, red blue-eyed neon rainbows. They got a really long common name. They're a really neat little blue-eyed fish. I was worried about them eating my shrimp when I put them in there, and but they haven't. The population stayed really, really steady. I don't see as many babies like wandering around like I used to. I don't see babies just everywhere, but I'm definitely, like, I pull shrimp out of here, I get more shrimp. I never seem like I'm running out. There's always just tons and tons of shrimp in here, so I feel like it's doing really well. Like they're cohabitating really well together. This is another one that I really love to breed, mostly because they're kind of expensive to buy lots of them, and I think they're just beautiful. I love their color, and when they hit the light just right, you'll see some like neon stripes, and of course those blue eyes that they have. Very, very neat little fish, and they used to hide a lot. I had a lot of floating plants in here at once, and they would all just kind of hide in the back. But pulling those out have really made it easier to see all the different things in there. And it doesn't seem like it's really messed with them too much. Of course, I've got some mono shrimp. I have a mono shrimp in just about any tank that I can, just because they really do a great job of kind of eating up the algae, like really doing a good job eating that algae. This has been a fun tank. Yeah, but that's the new style Fluval Flora, 15 gallons. And it's a lot of fun. I love this tank. The next tank I'm going to show you is a very popular tank. It's the Megaflex. It's the Fluval Flex. Why can't I say Fluval? It's the Fluval Flex 32 gallon. And it is far superior to the 15 gallon in just about every way. This is one that really captured the imagination of a lot of people when I videotaped it at first, of like the aquatic experience. And was that Chicago, New York? I think it was New York when we went to Jersey, I think. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's a 32-gallon Fluval Flex, or 123 liters, I believe it is. It is far superior to the 15-gallon version. The size of it is just about perfect for, your kind of average tank. You're not a big tank, not a little tank, kind of aquarium. The lights that are in it are really, really good. Not only that they're smart, because you can ramp them up and down and really mimic circadian cycles and stuff. Not only because of that, but they're definitely strong enough to grow plants and do really well. So on a recent trim on this one, I went through and I pulled a bunch of plants kind of out of the center, and I ended up with like this big dark spot right in the middle that I think is really neat. It's cool with your aquascaping to have negative spaces like that, and it's fun to watch the fish sort of emerge out of it. And speaking of fish, what I have in here are a bunch of ember tetras. I think I've got about 10 ember tetras. They're all hanging out right here in the corner right now. I've also got some Siamese algae eaters, which I include in, you'll see most of my aquariums. A lot of my aquariums have that. I've also got some pygmy cory cats, as you'll see there at the top of the screen, kind of wandering in. I've got a few leftovers from the 27-gallon cube when I broke it down, like the green neon tetra, like you just saw Breeze in there, and I've got a couple of rummy nose tetras in there too, whose population I need to increase. I've also got a longfin bristlenose pleco, which helps keep it nice and clean. He decided not to make an appearance when I had the camera out this time, but yeah, it's a cool tank. Really fun to look at, really interesting. It looks a lot different in the daytime and the nighttime too. Like in the nighttime when the lights get real dim, a lot of the fish come out and you can really see a ton of activity. It's really interesting from the sides too. I love to always show a side shot of it just to kind of show all the different angles. It's a cool tank. Okay, so next up is my newest aquarium. It's a 43-gallon tank. It's got low iron glass. It's got UV filtration. It also has an under gravel filter. I'll talk more about that in a second. It's been doing really well. One thing that I did add to this, I like to add it to a lot of my rimless tanks, is some glass tops. And I did this one in sections so I could pull smaller pieces off to do different things like cleaning or adding fish. As we go around the side, you'll see where the under gravel filter is connected. Now, I did my best to make sure it had just a small pull from the underneath, a little bit from the middle, and then it also comes in from the top where there's a surface skimmer. On this surface skimmer, I have added a little bit of a mesh there to kind of keep fish and shrimp from ending up inside my canister filter, where I've had to pull a few of those out. Overall, the tank has been doing pretty good. It's got some algae issues. I'm getting some hair algae here and there. It's not bad right now. It's not as bad as it has been in other tanks for sure. The other thing that I'm starting to see is diatoms kind of coming back. At first, the snails all kind of rose up and ate all the diatoms that were off there, but they're starting to come back a little bit, and that's a little bit unusual, especially when the plants are doing very good. But I set up this with a lot of different layers of very nutritious substrate, which I'm sure are kind of leaching out into the water column and kind of causing some issues. The fish that are in here are a bunch of endlers. These are like my little endlers breeding project that I had going in my sump. They've recently exploded with babies. I now have babies all over the place inside this tank, and I need to probably offload a few of those. A new fish that I've gotten is another, this is another goby. It's sold to me as a rainbow goby, and they love to eat diatoms. So I'm hoping, I've just added this fish a few days ago, and I'm hoping that it will really help out in there. Now, I've had other rainbow gobies, and they all look different than this one. This one's about twice the size of like the one upstairs. It also has some color to it. It's hard to tell from my iPhone video here, but it's got more color to it also than the other one. So I'm not sure if it's a male female thing or what's up with that, but it's a really cool little goby. The view from the side of this tank I really like. It's a very wide tank. It's got it's very deep, so it's actually kind of an interesting view from the side. And it's really nice coming in the house. Usually after the front door, this is the first thing you see. And as we move from this side, let's look at the last tank, the 210. So the 210 has been a really interesting tank. It's been a lot of fun to keep. It doesn't grow plants as well as the other tanks, and I think after I'm trying to remember. Are we at 3 years, 4 years? I think we might be at 4 years with this thing, and it might be time to revisit, maybe doing some replanting and stuff. So crypts do pretty good in here, and of course they have very low requirements. I have one giant sword on the left there, and it does really, really well. All the fish that I put in there seem to be doing really well, and I've included more and more fish that have particular algae interest. And on the recommendation of some of my viewers, I decided to throw some angelfish in there because they don't mess with the plants really much at all, and they're really interesting to look at. My initial plan was to put like 5 of them in there, but then I started getting paranoid about my interactions with the Bisher, Mr. Tubes, and these guys. I wasn't sure if they were going to get along or if he'd rip them apart, so I ended up just getting 2. And they bicker back and forth quite a bit. But I haven't seen anything really troubling out of the 2 of them, so I'll just let them grow up in there and see how they do. Of course, I've got 8 Ball, the biggest yo-yo loach you've ever seen. This yo-yo loach is about 11 years old now, and just absolutely enormous, really huge. I've also got, of course, the rainbows. Holly's favorite fish are those rainbows, and they seem to be doing really good. Every now and then I'll find a baby that I guess hatches out and then disappears behind the background. Every now and then one of those will jump over and I'll have another fish. I've also got the electric blue Ankara, which is really great. Now, Mr. Tubes is in there and doing good. He was not feeling social at all. In fact, during the day, most of the days he spends under there. I'm going to do a longer video on this tank eventually, and we'll get a closer look at him soon. But I'm afraid today I don't have much to show you. The blue Ankara is always a good ham. It likes to come out there. But if you look at the plants in here, like none of my Anubias in this tank have done very well, and a few other plants have just, nothing. No stem plants really do very well in here. In fact, nothing's done great except for the sword and some crypts, and it's been a really frustrating tank to keep because of that. So in some ways, it's been a really frustrating tank to keep, but I think it's well due for a reset. And if you're wondering, I've got another little project here off on the side, but I'll have to tell you about that later. Okay, folks, that's all of them. I've got a few projects left over from my long break, a few things that I've got, some exciting new projects that I can't really talk about yet. I'm supposed to post those videos like in a month or so. So as I mentioned in the updates, there's a couple of projects that some tanks I need to redo and some other kinds of little things I need to talk about here and there. I've also got a couple of products from Awase to unbox. And I've got another product that's not strictly an aquarium, but it's like a desktop or tabletop RO machine that was sent to me. I'm going to test that out and kind of see how it would work. It's much too small to really use practically for aquariums, but there are other kind of things maybe that RO water could be useful for, especially if you're keeping a little shrimp tank or something like that, maybe for a small aquarium, doing a water change. It might be enough for that. I need to unbox it and really see what it's about. But all that stuff's coming up real soon. Until next time, follow your bliss, keep a clean tank, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.